let's get right into it. We are going to talk about my way too early AAC standings predictions, starting with number 14 through number 5. Let's get right to it. At number 14 in my preseason college football American Athletic Conference rankings, I have the Temple Owls. It's a realm unknown. They have three guys that could be the starting quarterback. And one of them is Kurt Warner's son, EJ Warner. And I don't see Temple winning more than 4 games this year. At most 5, and not making a bowl game and finishing near the bottom in the American Athletic Conference. Number 13, I have Charlotte University. The 49ers of Charlotte University. The reason I have them here is because we don't know a lot about them in the American Athletic Conference. They came over from Conference USA, and it's going to be their first year in the American Conference, American Athletic Conference. And I have them finishing here because we don't know how good they're actually going to be in their first year in the American Athletic Conference. And they could finish higher than this at the end of the season. Because, again, when I do all these conference standings, this is preseason that I'm doing them right now. And then I'm going to do them again at the end of the season. And they could be higher at the end of the season. You never know. Moving on. At number 12, I have the Navy Midshipmen. The reason I have them here is not so much as it's more of they have a new head coach now. Their coach from last year, Kenny Montalolo, got fired, and they had to hire a new coach. And Navy's not really known for their athletics. More of the reason is the reason you really send your kids to the Naval Academy is to teach them how to become a better men and end up going to serve their country. And the reason I have Navy here is because I don't feel like they're going to win more than 4 or 5, maybe 6 at the most games. And they're not going to finish in the top portion of my rankings. Number 11, I have another new team to the American Athletic Conference, and that's the North Texas Mean Green. They also come over from Conference USA. And I think they could actually finish higher than this in my after the season rankings, but I have them here in my preseason rankings because like I said about University of Charlotte, we don't know much about them in the American. We know they dominated in Conference USA and did really well there. But this is the Roma being unknown because this is their first year coming into the American Conference. And we don't know how good they're going to be, how good they're going to do. Moving on to the number 10 team in my way too early conference, American Athletic Conference standings. It's another new team to the American Athletic Conference, the Rice Owls. And the reason I have them at 10 is the same reason I have North Texas behind them and Charlotte at number 13. Is they're new, and we have absolutely no idea how they're going to do in the American, with this sense of it being their first year, their inaugural year in the American Athletic Conference. And They could do really well. They could do really bad. And it's simple as that. At number 9, I have the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. The reason I have Tulsa here is because I looked at their record last year and they went 5-7. I don't see a way they finish with more than 5 or 6 wins again this year. With the amount of star power that's still in the American Conference with SMU, Memphis, USF possibly, which you will see, just a hint, little teaser, you will see USF in the next part of my rankings coming up in a couple videos. But back to this portion of my rankings. Like I said, Tulsa could win 6 or 7 games. They could win more. And they could be higher at the end of the season. I just don't know. It's too early to tell. Number 8 on the list, I have the Memphis Tigers. They had a really good year last year. And they could be higher at the end of the season. I could see them winning 9 or 10 games or less. It depends on how they play every week, and if they come out flat a couple of games, they could lose a bunch of games or they could win a bunch of games. It really depends. At number 7, I have East Carolina, who was, I would say, a surprise throughout the season last year in the American Athletic Conference. They had some good games. They had some bad games. They won some games they weren't supposed to win. They lost some games they were supposed to win. And I think they could finish higher than 7 in my end of season rankings at the end of the college football season for the American Athletic Conference. Or they could finish right around here. The next team I have is the Florida Atlantic Owls. Here's another new team to the American Athletic Conference. And I see them finishing right around here in their first year in the American. And the reason why is because they have a good coach. I don't remember his name, but I've seen that they've been really good the last couple of years. And the last team that I have in this portion of my rankings is University of Alabama, Birmingham. And the reason I have them here is because it's their first year in the American Athletic Conference. But they've been, since they restarted their football program a few years back, they've been very, very competitive in the American Athletic Conference. And I think they could finish 5 or they could finish inside the top 4. It's just, I don't know. It's the realm of being unknown again. Now, the next topic I'm going to talk about is fantasy baseball and 3 fantasy baseball players you should stash on your bench. Or if you're in a dynasty league, 2 guys that you should stash and 1 that you should add that could give you immediate, well, 1 that could give you immediate help. And then 2 that if you're in a dynasty league, they can help you now or they can help you in the future. The first guy I'm going to talk about is pitcher Bryan Bello from the Redsox. He is 65% rostered on ESPN leagues. And I didn't mention my roster threshold for a guy to be eligible for this is you have to be under. My standards is you have to be under 75% rostered. If you're over 75%, I will not talk about you and this portion of my show. So back to what I was saying. Brayan Bello, 65% rostered. He's starting to turn the corner and look like the pitcher the Red Sox wanted him to be when they called him up. He'll give you, if you're in a points league, I recommend picking him up. I have him in one of my points leagues, and he's helped me win a bunch of games. The next guy I'm going to talk about is a prospect in the Brewers system named outfielder Sal Frelick. He's a prospect in the Brewers system, and he is only 21% rostered. I think you need to pick him up and stash him on your bench, or if you have minor league spots, pick him up, stash him away in your minor league spot, and wait, because the Brewers could call him up because one of his former teammates who was in the big leagues this year, did really well before he got hurt. Garrett Mitchell is basically out for the season, and they've been playing Tyrone Taylor, Bryan Anderson, a bunch of guys in the outfield. The only two guys that have stuck are Joey Wiemer and Christian Yelich, which I can tell you for a fact Christian Yelich is probably not available. And I don't know how rostered Joey Wiemer is. But if Sal Frelick is available in your league, which he should be, like I said, he's only 21% rostered in fantasy baseball right now, I would pick him up and stash him away on your bench or in minor league spot if you play on CBS and see what he does for you. And the last stash candidate I'm going to talk about is pitcher from the Astros, Forrest Whitley. He is 0.1% roster, which means he pretty much should be available in your league. And the reason I would pick him up and stash him is because I read a report today when he's healthy and comes back from injury, the Astros are said to probably going to call him up and put him in the bullpen. He is a really good, I've watched some of his highlights. He has a really good fastball, and he's really good. Next portion is my waiver wire. And again, the roster threshold for me is under 75%. So these three guys I'm going to talk about are under 75% rostered in fantasy baseball. The first guy I'm going to talk about is Edouard Julien of the Minnesota Twins. He's a second baseman. He is 1.6% rostered in fantasy baseball, and he is not playing against lefties, but when he's in a lineup against righties, Rocco Baldelli normally has him leading off and playing second base. He'll get you hits, home runs. He steals bases. He's not going to hit for average, but he will, like I said, he'll get you points. The next guy is somewhat widely available, and it is catcher from the Mets, Francisco Alverez. He is 25.4% rostered in fantasy baseball. If you need catching help, I would recommend picking him up and stashing him on your bench. Or if you're like me, I have a league where I had him, Adley Rutschman, Bo Naylor, and just picked up Henry Davis. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get all of them playing time in my lineup. So I traded Adley Rutschman to somebody in my league. And now I have my catchers are Henry Davis, Yainer Diaz, and Francisco Alverez. Alverez has helped me get off to a hot start. I'm 8-0 in that league. I recommend picking him up. And the last guy I'm going to talk about is pitcher Mathew Liberatore from the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals have had issues with their starting rotation, not injury-wise, more of just flat-out pitching. And Mathew Liberatore is only 2.9% rostered in fantasy baseball. I recommend picking him up. And if you want to wait and see if he sticks around, stash him on your bench. And if he ends up sticking around the rest of the season, you can pick and choose when you want to put him in your lineup to start him, or if you want to keep him on your bench and use him eventually as a trade chip to pick up somebody else, to try to trade for somebody else. And thank you, everyone. That's the show. If you have any questions, please comment them in the comment section below. Or, leave them in the comment section below. Thank you. That's the show. Have a good day.